What's up, everybody? Just making some really simple mini guides for Hellfire Tactics this weekend for the first open beta. I'll make a little more in-depth guides as I play the beta more. Really get into the meta, get into positioning and stuff like that. But for now, I just wanted to talk about the clans, the way to start the game, a little bit of the units, and maybe the archdemons. But I don't know that we're gonna get quite there. All right, so first off, we have sizes. There's small, normal, large. There's lots of treasures that affect the sizes, but the sizes you can think of as the good, evil, neutral of this game, or that's pretty much it, the good, evil, neutral. There's a bunch of treasures for small things because they're usually, cheaper, smaller, and not as powerful. There's a treasure that gives all small warriors or gives all small the warrior trait, and they get +1. They're usually more early game utility, things like Mana Pest, things like Animanaut, the rats, etc. They're pretty common as well. And then there is normal. I guess I said medium, but it's normal. Normal is a little more of the mid-end game butter. You get a lot of the supports at normal. There's, treasures for normals as well, and then there's large. And large is usually the end game units, the big fatties, as it would be. These have some of the best treasures, but they're not really around until later in the game, mostly. There's exceptions with the Mana Guardian, I believe, being the first large that you really come across. Let's see. Yep, first one you come across. So just what I want to talk about a little bit is the earlier comps, the easier comps to play if you're just starting out. So the easiest one that's definitely competitive by far is the Ratikins. So what the Ratikins do is they're essentially token producers that create rats when they die, but they kind of thrive off of each other. For example, there's the rat can and the auxiliary rat. They both summon 1/1s when they die. They synergize really well with the Magicus, which gives Ratikins +2/+1. So with the tokens, they'll still be at least 3/2s if this is around, and it'll go there. Their endgame revolves around a couple of different things. You could either go into Nature's Wrath and just play a full tokens build, or you can just really stick to the rats and play things like Rat Sport and the Steel Tooth, which buffs all rats on attack. So they're just a synergistic tribe. Pretty easy to pick up. They have really good treasures. Really good treasures, actually, that make them quite strong. Between Rat Bait, which just makes them 1 cheaper, which is a lot. Potent Brew, which is every time you buy a rat, all the other rats get bigger. And they're real endgame between Strength and Numbers and Swarm Tactics. So definitely do suggest trying out rats. Pretty much one of the first things that you should do is try out rats. The second real easy thing to try out is the greeners. And so the greeners are kind of just big dummies. They all have pretty decent stats, and they have a couple supports. They have some units that give adjacent units power, so you can even just pick this up, and it's kind of strong throughout the whole time. Music is being weird. They synergize really around boost, and boosting things like the Garek, which is already scaling a little bit. Boosting things like their bread and butter Captain is one of the stronger units in the whole game. Whenever it takes damage and survives, you gain 2 6/6s, and they have range. It's very good. When it's upgraded, they're kind of monstrous. So this is really good against things like some small rats and people who are sort of struggling. It punishes them pretty well. Their end game revolves around, you can either play Abomination for the tokens, you can play Death Champions for the warrior synergy, or what you really want to do is get 10-foot, which is usually just gigantic because it gains stats equal to the buffs, and the greeners just get buffs throughout everything. And then if you really get to the end game and go well, you want to do the World Eater 10-foot, because what the World Eater does is it eats linked units and takes their stats. So if it eats a 10-foot that's been gaining buffs because of your Captain being boosted, then you just have this huge monster comp, and it's really good. We'll talk about a little less good comps now. I say a little less good, but just a little harder to put together. I think they're actually still as good. I think that Sorry, I'm checking out what my elementals. Elementals is probably my favorite comp because it's actually really flexible and fun. So it starts just with the supports. The elementals have a lot of supports that build into each other. So the fire elemental is just a great unit to pick up early anyway, as is the water elemental. I've been calling this thing wind elemental for a full month and now I feel bad. So basically these are really good. Like fire elemental is great just picking up random rats or whatever if you want to try to stay flexible. But if we keep going, the elementals are all magicians or magical, so you can pick up the mana guardians and start kind of going into a mage comp. Or we can pick up the earth elemental and link them to some elementals and even mix them things with like solid shadow, and you just start getting this huge scaling comp. Usually its downside is that it has really low HP but really high attack, so you can trade off really well. So if you mix things like the Unholy Flame with it, it's a really, really good comp. And then if that doesn't work out and you don't get the earth elementals, you can actually just go into the Serpentina bomb build, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But overall, I like elementals a lot. I think it's a little harder to play, but I do suggest checking it out for sure. I would say after elementals, everything else is sort of niche comps. I'll talk a little bit about the utility comp, and then we'll head right into the linking strong good argument of my favorite game right now because of the links, so we'll get into that. But utility. So basically there's a bunch of units that don't actually fit into a comp, but they are there for a reason still. So Mana Pest obviously doesn't really fit into a comp, but on death gains 1 mana. This thing's amazing on turn 1, if just hope your opponent doesn't have one as well, because then you can buy 2 units on turn 2. It's really, really good. Automata, friendly units with health 2 or less, start a fight with barrier, and what barrier is they take damage once before they die. It's a free shot basically. It's a barrier. I think we've all experienced that of some variety. But this is just a really good flex unit that you can stick in with, you know, your high attack units, your Gorex, which is this feller, or, you know, whatever it may be. This is a really good utility unit. The Blood Mage is just a great support. This is possibly my favorite unit in the whole game. It is really good. Highly suggest sticking that in pretty much most comps. Flambar is one of my favorite units. It's really strong. It's fun positioning wise. You can put a range in the back and start growing your range. You can put something that you don't want to die in the back. This thing is just incredible. Serpentina's not quite as flexible, but if you're casting some spells anyway, she's incredible in every comp. She's range, she gets huge stats for everybody. She's really, really good. Deep Leech is really good if you have a huge unit already. You can just kind of flex it in. The Iron Ogre is great against the barrier comps. Really, really good, because if it has a barrier at all, it just kills every other barrier. Would say Fanatic is okay. This is usually a support killer, so it's pretty okay. It can also kill a big World Eater if they don't position their board right. And then the 6s, we don't need to talk about for now. So for now, I'm going to leave it at that with the comps. I will give more examples of them in later videos, but for now, I think that's just a really quick crash course. I'm going to end this one here, and then we're going to actually get into the bread and butter of the game. All right.